And it's Friday, and we're live. It's the first Friday of the month. That means it's Patron Hangout time. We got a little bit of a lower attendance this week. I'm sure everybody's still kind of getting over that big holiday rush, or it's Friday and they have better things to do than we do on a Friday night. So, thank you, Mike and Ryan, for joining us, or Mike and Matt for joining us. His last name is Ryan. If you guys are a patron, check the patron page or your patron messages as we have sent out the link to this. And if you come in quietly, if you are watching this now, if you want to join in on this hangout once a month, join us at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. This is available to all pledge levels, from as low as $1 to as high as, whatever you're willing to give us. With that said, it's been a holiday season. It's been wonderful. We look forward to talking to you guys. We do have one electronic message that I got on Facebook from one of our patrons who won't be joining us this weekend. But we want to start the show, of course, with those of you who decided to join us live, and of course in order of who showed up. Mike.
Hey guys. So let's start off with the big news that it was yesterday or so that they released what the world's finest Clix looked like, and this card and everything like that. So my question to you is: this the first God Clix that's totally unstoppable, even based on its star power? I was reading on there.
I got lots to say, so you go first.
Okay. The funny thing is that me and Jason actually had a conversation about this probably about 2 hours ago now, on our way home from dinner, and we were talking about how even though with his trait his powers can't be countered, his combat values can't be decreased. None of it says that he can't be ignored, and you can't use a can't use. So someone like Nick Fury can still be like, nope, you're not allowed to have that. So, I mean, I wouldn't say he's completely unstoppable, but it also depends on the environment that he's going to be in. And, of course, the first environment we're possibly going to see these in are pre-release, set release sealed, WizKids opens are likely going to be world's finest sealed. So he's going to be a big brick house that's going to be a lot to deal with and going to cause a lot of problems. But that's only when you have him in just sealed and not bring him into constructed, where you can actually build around him like you would with any other really big problematic piece.
So, with that said, let's talk about WizKid Opens and how big they are.
Tangent.
No, it's not a tangent. It's actually directly related to this. You see, you said sealed, and that's where he is the biggest threat. Now, the biggest tournaments coming up outside of ROCs or rocks that are going to be showing up here and there are going to be, of course, the WizKids Opens. They're everywhere, including locally here in Ontario. We have Whitby as a location as well. Unfortunately, on the same weekend, Ottawa Cartamagic is running it. My guess is it has something to do with the Magic or Pokemon schedule for them, because they get a lot of people showing up for that. Anyway, tangent. That was a tangent. But as well as Vancouver and Calgary having these events. So we have them up here. We have them in Canada. We have them in Chile. We have them in Mexico. So these are big events, and this is not like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. There's like more than a dozen. So going past that, we got to talk about the attendance on these, because HeroClix is unique versus other games as far as sealed play is concerned, because the number of players in a sealed environment legitimately changes the outcome of what to expect as far as a sealed game is concerned. Because in your local event, if you have 20 people show up, if you have 10 people show up, that's 1 case, because that's 2 packs per every person, that's 20 packs, right? Now, if 20 people show up, that's 40 packs, so that's 2 cases. You get a pretty good idea of what's going to be out there, but still 2 to 4 chases depending on the set, right? Or in some cases 2 or 3 chases, again, depending on the set. So now we look to this set, and I'm just talking about chases, because chases are on average 1 or 2 per case. This is a super rare. Super rares are about 3 per brick, that's 2 bricks per case, and, That's 6 super rares per case on average. So going past that, we go into a WizKids Open where the attendance is expected to be 60 plus. So 60 people means 120 packs, which means 6 cases. 6 cases times 6 super rares is 36 super rares. I'm pretty sure close to 6, maybe at least 4 or 5 will pull that figure, which means that figure is definitely a threat because at 300 points, he's practically unstoppable in a sealed environment. He can't be countered. His stats can't be decreased, which means whatever you have, you just have to throw it at it. Now, this is the first figure we've seen of the World's Finest. We know the Doom Patrol is showing up. We know that Shadow Pack's showing up. We know the Metal Men are showing up. Those are all 3 different themes that could have some precision strike, that could have some probability control, but at the same time, we're going to see multiple Supermen and multiple Batman. Possible. Well, I heard there was like 1 of each in each rarity, but again, I think they've counted both of them as a super rare. So with that said, this is a very frightening idea to have to think about, because if I was going into a WizKids Open, and much like I had to deal with in Canadian Nationals, when we were playing in the sealed grinders, I immediately said, well, if I have to deal with Martian Manhunter, I don't have the team I didn't pull packs that could deal with that. And that's where the luck factor does actually have a degree of play in this. If you have packs that can't compete with something like, I don't know, the World's Finest duo, then you are going to have a bit of a trip getting up there, because if you win, you are more likely to come against people who have been successful, because that's kind of how the pairings work. So people who won play against other people who won. So in the first round, you might not see it. The second round, this is a figure who's likely to win a lot of the rounds when played at 300 points in a sealed environment. So we go further and we look at it and say, well, if there isn't a lot of Pulse Wave in the set, if there isn't a lot of abilities that say can't use in the set, then this figure is going to run rampant. And initially, because I have seen 1 figure out of 60 non-chases, and that's not including the chases that will definitely be pulled in these bigger events, I'm not at full panic mode yet, but for the love of God, make sure I have a lot of things in that set that can deal with this figure, because this figure does frighten me considering how much sealed I'm looking at going forward into the World's Finest environment and these WizKids Opens that are coming up. Whew. I tried to keep it calm. Was it calm? Was I good? Did I behave myself?
I also, just as a side note, want to mention the fact that if you read the flavor text on that card, it was
made by a Batman fan.
Someone was a Batman fan. Big old Batman fan.
Oh, definitely a Batman fan.
No love for Superman on that flavor text. Makes Superman look like a chump.
All right. So that said, Matt, what's your first question tonight?
Well, my first question dovetails with that really nicely, because I wanted to ask your sealed advice, considering the WizKids Opens and all this kind of stuff. You know, you've already addressed one of the things I kind of had heard you mention before, which is in a bigger sealed, you're guaranteed to see the higher rarity figures. Luckily, our WizKids Open here is in March. In the States, it's a little earlier, I think, but we'll have had a little bit more time with the set if that's it. So what's your advice? Study every figure. Think of, what can I do to beat this one? What can I do to beat that one? You know, make lists. What's your advice?
You go first.
Can I add in a bit? Sorry.
Yep.
Just also, like, I would be terrified to play a one-man army, even in like a sealed environment, because I get too nervous about putting it all into one. So I'd be tempted to play that figure at a lower point value. Mm-hmm. And in general, do you think that's a good idea or not? Or just go all in?
Now, without having seen the set itself, I can't tell you too much about figure versus figure. But the strategies themselves, so like personally for me, I've actually found lately that I do a lot better in sealed than I do in constructed, and I didn't want to admit that I did better in sealed than constructed because I don't personally like the sealed format. I don't like the randomness of it. I don't like that take World's Finest, for example. You can have a, not necessarily bad, but a more inexperienced player take out more experienced players just because of what they were able to pull. Now, that's not to say that experienced players with really bad figures can't do well. I mean, just look at Kenny Pena's Nationals grinders, where he took a team that was crap, absolute crap, and made it all the way through. I think, was he undefeated?
He was 4-0 in the second grinder. The first grinder, he had a team that was like ungodly, amazing, unstoppable. And then the second grinder, he had Shadowlass, Toyman, and whatever else he could squeeze into the point.
Yeah.
Oh, Science Police Officer was one of them as well.
And, like, not the greatest figures. Like, Shadowlass's Smoke Cloud's amazing, but, like, if she's your big figure, that's not going to take you very far. But the unbalancedness of sealed, I don't personally like, but I do actually do well in that, and that also comes from the limited and on-the-fly team building. Because when I get 100 million different choices to choose from, it's hard for me to put something together. But when I have 10 choices to choose from, I'm actually a lot better at looking at it, analyzing it, and being like, yes, this is my best choices. So personally, when I go into sealed, what I like to do is look to see what's going to be my main attacker, my heavy hitter, usually someone between 100 and 150 points. They do a lot of damage right off the front. Do they have move and attack? That's a really big thing for me if my big heavy hitter doesn't have moving and attack. There was a bunch in War of Light. I think it was... I regret playing him. I had pulled the super rare Sinestro, the Indigo Core Sinestro, and he was really high points, high damage, but his opening click had phasing. And I did all right in that tournament, but if he had running shot or charge or even sidestep, that would have completely changed how I played that figure. So personally, I like to do big heavy hitter that has some kind of move and attack. And then either a secondary figure or something that I can fit into like a mid-range and then support. And I was actually talking to Jason about this earlier today. We were having a lot of HeroClix discussions today. And I was saying in Sealed that when it comes down to like trying to fill in the last few points, I did this a lot in Age of Ultron because there was a lot of like 50, 60 point characters that you were able to pull. And when it was in between two like 55 point characters, it was like looking at their front stats, how's their attack, how's their damage. And then the deciding factor in which one ended up in my team was how many clicks of life they had. And even for my big heavy hitters, that's a big thing for me in Sealed is that is this guy going to take 4 or 5 clicks like a standard attack and just drop? Like, can he survive going into your face, getting hit the next turn, and then being able to retaliate? Or is he going to get hit and now suddenly my entire team is falling apart because my big guy just took a hit? So that's, for me, that's just like general Sealed. That's like how I like to build my teams for Sealeds. What I think is a good, has done well for me in strategy. I'm going to let Jason, actually our actual strategy guy, take this from me because I'm just like, being like, yeah, guys, this is what looks, yay, this works good.
It's funny this comes up because last night I had our first coaching session, which is one of the new Patron levels. It's a $20 value in addition to everything lower. And our patron wanted to know a great deal about Sealed play because he comes from a Magic environment and he's good at Magic Sealed and he's less successful in HeroClix Sealed. Well, funny enough, the opposite is true of me. I was terrible at Magic Sealed, and I was good at HeroClix Sealed, and there's a reason for that. Is that HeroClix is a game versus Magic the Gathering. Everything's on the table. Now, when you look into an environment at Sealed, one of the things that gets missed is the actual root name of the Sealed environment in any game is actually called Limited. And the reason it's called Limited is you are limited in the number of options you get. So the Rock has taken the word limited and made it their own format. I accept that, and I call that Rock Limited. If you look in a lot of the old manuals, limited is actually the name of sealed play for HeroClix. So when I say limited, the reason I want to emphasize that is because you are limited in the number of options you have in sealed. Like Amber said, you get 10 options as far as figures are concerned. So you're working on a needy basis. Now, when we get that far, you got to look at what works in constructed and think ahead to, oh my goodness, if I had a thing that could make him better, I could use it. And that's what our resources are. We don't have options. We don't have that option in sealed. So already, a lot of the strategies that are mediocre become a little bit better. But some of the ones that stand out include one-man armies and tent poles. And the reason for that is in sealed, because of the limitation of what players have to build with, they have to choose whether or not they're going to do a ton of damage or have a bunch of counters to things. But sometimes if you have a bunch of counters to things, you don't have the numbers to match something like a tent pole or a one-man army. And that's where the Superman-Batman duo, the world's finest duo, scares me. He's got a 19 defense, stealth, and ability to ignore hindering terrain. So already in the world's finest set, we're thinking to ourselves, there's going to be some Batman figures. Well, they're not going to matter because that figure has the Superman team ability. And depending on how many have the Superman team ability, that figure might be able to actually keep stealth. But not everybody's going to have it. So what you got to think about is what things become infinitely stronger in an environment where not everybody has full access to everything, right? Because the best way to think of constructed is everybody has everything. What do I have to be ready for, or what can I do to do as much as I possibly can? In sealed, you just want to do as much damage as you possibly can, because in any game, aggressive sealed is almost 100% of the time the best strategy, because doing damage just ends things for people. So when you look at a figure like World's Finest, it is a 100% safe play as a one-man army because it can't be countered, and its powers can be decreased as well. And you know, it's not just like immune to outwit. Like I think it says powers and abilities. I have to double check, but I know at least powers can be countered, which is important. As well, it's got colossal stamina, which gives it that extra level of safety. Amber is just going to go ahead and jump in.
Powers and abilities, yeah.
Yeah, it is powers and abilities. Well, there we go. So it's got its flight all the time. I don't think duo ability can be countered, and its indomitable can't be countered, as well as the fact that its powers can't be countered. So unless they have something on the verge of Nick Fury or a vast number of Pulse Wave characters that we don't see imagine coming, I'm not a Doom Patrol figure or fan, so I don't know how many of those figures could feasibly make sense with Pulse Wave. I know I can see some penetrating poison coming out of Chemo if he's in this set, and he is a Metalman enemy, so that makes sense to me. The Metalmen, some of them are going to have Psychic Blast, but that's no good against Invincible. Some of them are going to have Precision Strike. Some of them are going to have Super Strength. So it's just a matter of numbers. And this is a figure that has the numbers, and its numbers are safe. So what you got to look at with one-man armies, as far as the game is concerned, it evolved around the time we got cards, where everything that was playable as a one-man army generally had some way of avoiding powers being countered, be it the Quintessence ability, be it Power Cosmic, be it this character's powers can't be countered. It's always been one of those things you could count on, and that's the first thing you got to look at is, as a one-man army, are you safe from outwit? This is a character where I would say definitely. Outside of that, you got to look at your first strike potential. I go back a lot to War of Light, because in War of Light I was very successful playing with the Weaponer of Cord in the first 2 months, and then Mon-El in the third month. Effectively a one-man army. I had to squeeze whatever I had left into the team because he didn't fill up the team. He's 200. Mon-El was.
No.
I'm sorry.
Sodomyat.
Sodomyat. That's the one. Sodomyat. He was 250 points, and the Weaponer was 211. Now the environments were different because the points went up around the time of Sodomyat. But the point is that I took the Weaponer of Cord and another figure. I hate playing Temple in competitive play, but in sealed, you look at this figure. He's got full movement, running shot and charge. He's got the ability to choose an attack power. He's got 5 damage off the top, 18 defense with impervious. And if everything goes absolutely terribly bad, on his last click, he's got a stop click on a relatively deep dive. So you take all that into effect, and you say you can play a little sloppy. That last click comes with regeneration. If you regenerate, you're indomitable, so you can get through all of that. And on top of all of that, he is a very solid dial across the board, and of course Warlight also had the batteries, but that was neither here nor there. Ultimately, when I say that, like, I'm not comfortable playing a 10-pull until you get me in sealed, and then if you get me in sealed, I will happily play more than half my points for a figure if I think that figure can survive, again, the set. Now that's the second factor you gotta look into sealed is what does the set bring? If I find out that this is figure number 60 and figures number 1 through 59 all have pulse wave, I might rethink this figure. Right? Because you got to think about pulse wave is the universal be-all, end-all. And then, you know, it's even more dangerous if it can be combined with running shot or telekinesis and pulse wave bombs are getting thrown. So you think of this figure and go, okay, what kind of pulse wave figures can I deal with? Now I'm going to pull up the dial a second because Amber kind of shoved it in the corner. But if he takes 3 damage, he's off of his first 300-point dial and onto 200 points. So in your head, you've scored 100 points. So now you got to get past the rest of this. And that's what it comes down to is, in a bigger seal environment, be ready to kill the biggest thing or be ready to play it so that your opponent can't get to you and test the roll-off if you can. Or, in a big sealed environment, again, if you can play the kill a guy and run strategy and think you can get 4 wins, I'd say try that. And the reason I say try that is because not everybody's going to have a one-man army, and if you score low points, your pairings are lower, right? So people who have beaten the one-man army, who is a 300-point team, have scored 300 points. And it's now this is not a strategy I suggest. It's the biggest gamble in the world, because the second you take a loss, if you're taking low point wins, you have taken yourself out of tiebreakers, because points are the tiebreaker, right? So it's a dangerous game to play. But again, I really can't 100% predict this set yet. But right now, the way it looks like, World's Finest, if you pull it, play it. Kind of like the Beyonder or Guardians of the Galaxy. He was a safe 300-point play because you already knew he had to take 12 clicks of damage to die, and you know nothing is going to deal 12 clicks of damage in a single shot. So when he does take some damage, even if you're on something of a weak click, you're going to end up on a defense power. This is something I actually had when I was talking to Adam Friedman, who played in the World's the WizKids Opens last year. He kind of gave me the broader strokes and opened my mind to a different way of thinking about sealed. And you know, the way you think about sealed actually changes depending on the number of players. So that's kind of the way I see sealed play is the first thing you got to check is how many players are in this tournament. Second thing you got to know is what is this set going to bring. And the third thing you got to know is everything is better in sealed that's on the dial. Outwit, perplex, probability control. You think they're good? Put them in sealed. They're even better. Shield team ability, PD team ability, in constructed, you can use them. In sealed, oh, wow! I'll take it all, please. Yes, please give it all to me. Because you know, the ability to manipulate the game is just so much more powerful in sealed play than it is in constructed play. And again, tent poles and one-man armies get stronger depending on the set in sealed and sealed play over constructed play. Okay.
See, that's why I handed it off to him.
Did you see me just about to explode?
Well, yeah, I in Superman, Wonder Woman, you know, with all the reporters and things like that, there were times where I was playing where I thought, well, my best bet is to try and take out the little guys who are perplexing and outwitting and, you know, probing or whatever they're doing. They're just beefing up the big guys, and they're such a pain in the butt. Get rid of them in one shot, and then it's going to be a lot easier to take on the big guys. But then you kind of leave yourself open to getting retaliated against.
Yeah. Another thing I should mention about sealed, you might not be the guy that gets super rare or the chase as far as the set is concerned, and that's just a thing to be aware of. So it's not enough to say, okay, I might be that guy that gets super rare or the chase. That's really good in the game. Familiarize yourself with the low end. Know what the key commons and uncommons are, and even in some cases the rares too, because sometimes there's a figure in there that is just good, and you're kind of wondering why they're only a certain rarity, and that is part of that is because of sealed. I looked at figures like Apollo for ideas like this. Apollo is simply an uncommon, kind of like how what's the other figure I was talking about earlier? The Weaponer of Cord is only an uncommon, and same with Sodom Yat. Those figures stand out because not only are they just uncommon, but they're really good when the environment allows them to be. And sealed is one of those environments that allows a figure to just be as good as it is. So familiarize yourself with the low rarities as well as the high rarities, but make sure you're aware of what high rarities could still be a problem so that you know how to be ready for it with your team. In the big environment like the WizKids Opens, know that Superman and Batman are looming. And know that Bruce Timm probably wrote that card. And know that that figure exists and is ready to do what it can to you, and just be ready to do what you can to it. Because one of the things when it comes into a sealed is sometimes you can't build a tent pole or the one-man army, and you have to build something of a balanced team. And you got to know going into that the best you can do sometimes is just maximize as much attack as you can at that figure and hope something sticks. It happened to me in Age of Ultron. The first 2 months I spent playing against the Phalanx Ultron. And I can't even turn to you and say that I played any of those games poorly. I played every single game the best that I could with the packs that I had. My build was as good as I personally feasibly thought I could get it. I didn't see any replacements in the first 2 months. Round 1 of month 1, I played against a Phalanx Ultron. Round 2 of month 1, I played against a Phalanx Ultron. Round 3, of month 1, I played against a Phalanx Ultron who lost to another Phalanx Ultron. And then month 2, I played against a Phalanx Ultron round 1 of that tournament. So sometimes you just got to see what sticks and hope for the best. If you can, build a theme team, because prob is prob, and even though it takes an action token, prob is prob. Yeah. And if you have prob, use prob. If you have perplex, sometimes you just got to put it into attack first and make sure something sticks. Because sometimes one of the wonderful things about Clix is because things take damage and change. Sometimes you can just get yourself a turn of safety just by hitting a guy for a damage.
Yeah.
It's a slog. Sealed is hard. I'm never going to say sealed is easy, but it is definitely a critical thinking exercise that is different from any other sealed game in the world. And the challenge level is higher. The success level, I can't even tell you that I can guarantee success ever.
So random.
Absolutely not. I mean, in retrospect, sometimes the flip side can happen. Like I played in sealed against someone who had Mixaplix, who probably didn't read the card at all, and was just using like the basic powers, not the white powers, really. And in my mind, I'm thinking, should I mention anything or should I just go with this? Because if I point out how good this figure is, I'm losing this game. But,
there's a piece of tournament etiquette I have with regards to what you're talking about. If you see somebody is messing something up, depends on the tournament for me, but 99% of the time, wait until after the game, but make sure you tell them that they might have been doing something wrong. Just as an etiquette thing. Like, if I'm in Nationals and somebody plays Mixes Pitlick and I'm just like, I don't feel like you're playing that right, or I have some questions about their decisions, I'll wait till after the game, and that's when I'll have a full conversation about, like, hey, why were you doing it that way? Was there a reason you did it that way? Because a lot of people a lot of times have builds they send me, because that's one of our Patron options, is you can send me a build, and I'll build it, and then I'll play it, and people go, oh, that's not how I saw it going.
Yeah.
That's how I did it. So different thoughts will sometimes affect things, but just make sure you can, it's one of those community building things, after the game, talk about the game, see kind of how they did, if they did something that you have a question about, tell them what you would have done differently, and see how they react to it, because sometimes they just didn't know. Other times you're like, yeah, I was trying some other B-level strategy or ABC strategy that you were thinking of differently.
Yeah.
So,
now, the only time I'll step in, and I've had to do it a lot of times in the like casual Saturdays where Golden Age tournaments, I don't care. I turn off my judge brain and I go to play to have fun. But storyline events, nationals, heading off to the WizKids Open, if I see a person playing a figure wrong, like they're not playing it properly according to the game text, I'll jump in and tell them they're playing it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't want to lose a game just because they're not playing the figure properly. Yeah. Now, if they're just not using certain powers, okay, maybe they have, like Jason was saying, maybe they have a different plan in mind. Maybe they didn't know their figure did that, but as long as they're not playing it wrong, as long as they're not doing anything illegal, anything against the rules, I'll sit back and, because they're doing their thing. But as soon as they do something wrong, I'll be like, okay, show me your card? No, that's not how that works. Yeah. I had to do that with the Age of Ultron that I ended up actually managing to play some sealed in, and I did really well in at a completely different venue. There was, in one of my second rounds, there was a kid who was playing one of the Ultron drones that ramp up, that collect the tokens, and I was like, that's not how, no, that's not how that power works.
Yeah. Okay, so what Amber's talking about is rules, yeah, correct them.
Yeah.
If their strategy is wrong, that's when you talk to them after the game. That's kind of, that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I actually did an episode where one of the most powerful weapons you have in the game is Judge.
Yeah. Really is.
But that's pertaining to rules.
No, in this case, I meant they weren't using all that figure could do.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, jeez.
That's a safe after-game situation.
Yeah.
All right. With that said, sorry, Mike.
All right. So continuing on with the theme, hopefully this is a fair enough question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you guys on the spot or anything, but in regards to the World's Finest piece, how much do you think that something like this will now affect the secondary market? How much do you think something like that will we see, weeks later up on other websites and stuff like that? How much would it cost? And then how much would maybe say? Is there any other golden pieces out there that might actually be effective? Will that also drive up the cost of those pieces as well?
Okay. The secondary market is a fickle beast. And here's what I'm going to say about this figure. Depending on the pull rate on him, he's a super rare. Now, if everybody and their sister happens to be pulling this in a case, I wouldn't expect it to hit higher than $30, mostly because, for one, the pull rate is not as infrequent as you'd expect. Secondly, it looks like, as far as the sealed game, because it's an improvisation game and it kind of happens on the spot, its market value as far as in the game is there and then. So then we have to look at how much this figure is going to affect Constructed. Well, I have a question from one of our patrons that is electronically sent. I'm going to answer it after Matt's question. But with regards to that, the 300-point value, for a few reasons, doesn't really affect the grander metagame, and there's a greater story to that as far as that's concerned. The 200-point value, it's good, but I don't see it kind of wrecking the game. So then I look to the 75-point net value, and for 75 points, the ability to do 6 damage is absolutely bonkers. So this figure at 75 points has a ton of value to it. But at the same time, I don't see its grander space in the metagame. So I wouldn't expect this figure, based on competitive play, to hit a high value. Now, day one, you got one big problem. There's a dude in a black suit with a black cape on this base.
I was just going to talk about
And there's a dude with a red cape and a yellow and red S on his chest. And that is because there's a Superman and a Batman on it, people want this figure. So that's going to drive up the secondary market just a little bit more on it, mostly because for their reasons, collectors love Superman and Batman, and Superman and Batman do tend to fetch some pretty high values. Now, if you go back to Trinity War, the Batman fetched close to $50 when he first came out, and the Superman was hitting $40, $50 as well. Now, the Superman was mostly because of pull rate. Not a lot of people pulled that Superman. The Batman was because everybody looked at that pick and power and went nuts about it. Now, less and less are we seeing that Batman. Okay. But he does have his place in the limited format. That's my opinion of it as well. Excuse me. Better out than in. But with that said, I don't see this guy this is not going to hit Nick Fury levels of $50. Nick Fury is one of those anomalies in the super rare category that is just really good for his rarity, and the demand for him is so high that it's kind of jacked up the price. Along the lines of the Iron Pharaoh, where just before Worlds, Iron Pharaoh hit $90 to $110. Everybody had to have that figure because Iron Pharaoh was winning. And if you weren't winning with Iron Pharaoh, it's because you were specifically beating Iron Pharaoh. And that's kind of my thoughts on the secondary market for this. This figure, at first, he is going to be jacked up pretty high in price. I expect to see $40, $50 because some silly fool is going to have won a lot of, or it's going to win a lot of seals for a lot of people. And people are going to think, well, that makes its value high. Well, no, that's sealed. That's an improvisation. It was good at the moment, but it's not going to be good once I buy it. Because once I buy it, its value goes down as far as what it's worth. But the fact that it's Superman and Batman for weeks 1 through 4, expected to keep the value very high. But then if the pull rate is on par of, like, let's say, Avengers Assemble Thor, I mean, I honestly saw more Ragnaroks than I saw of Thor. So Thor hit a high value because almost nobody was pulling him, and that's one of those weird anomalies that do occur in the super rare slot. Superman Blue. I mean, how many locally we saw? I think we had this conversation the last time we had a Patreon or Patron Hangout, sorry, where Superman Blue had such a low pull rate locally. We had about 13 cases between a bunch of people, and two got pulled. So. There are anomalies in this probability game that exists, so we'll see how the pull rate of this figure occurs. But because of the amount of this set that's going to be out there, I wouldn't expect secondary markets to be high out there. And here's where I got to go on another kind of tangent. Guardians of the Galaxy didn't hold a great deal of value as far as the set is concerned for one big reason outside of the zombies. And that is that you're escaping. Am I boring you? It's the fact that Guardians of the Galaxy was a set that was used for WizKids Opens. So they had to produce more of that set, which means more of that set had to be made available so that those tournaments could occur. And of course, I think when I talked to Adam Friedman, he said 64 people showed up for that WizKids Open. I think 90 showed up for another. So you got to think of the number of cases extra that got made just to make sure these tournaments could be held. For I think 4 WizKids Opens got held last year. This year, that's what we're holding in Canada. There's like 8 of them in the States, 6 of them in Mexico, another 4 of them in Chile.
And they're expecting these all to be run at World's Finest.
Yeah, all of them are expected to be run with the World's Finest set. So that set is going to be in high production levels, which means there's going to be a lot of these figures out there, which then decreases the secondary market value on a lot of things. Now, I hope nobody from WizKids is listening and all of a sudden stopping production on the figures, because we really want these figures to show up at these WizKids Opens, and I don't want limited numbers of WizKids Opens, even though I'm pre-signed. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, we just lost you. I did hear him Skyping out a little in the conversation. I hope that didn't affect him too much. Hopefully he can click the link and get his way back in. But yeah, that's kind of – so the secondary market on this figure is probably not going to be as high as we fear, but expect month 1 to be hectic as far as people trying to chase this figure down. Oh, I'm out of breath. Did you want to add to that, or do you think it might?
No, because you hit the point that I was going to mention, is that just because of the pure fact that it's Superman and Batman on the same dial, this will have a stupid secondary market price because just the collectible is one of the very rare figures that will have a secondary market price based on its collectability rather than its playability.
Yeah. And Mike, what I was saying before you kind of it dropped out on us.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It happens, but I think what the point I was getting to was there's going to be a lot of World's Finest out there. World's Finest, they have to make extra because of the number of WizKids Opens that they're running and the amount of product they have to have available for these. So I would expect more figures to be out there, which kind of also adds a decrease to the value. So expect the first couple months of World's Finest, the World's Finest figure, to be hectic. but I think it'll taper off if his pull rate is proper.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Quick question on that. Is it expected that, you're saying it's expected that it's world finest, but do you know how much that's at the discretion of anybody other than WizKids, or does WizKids make that decision? Or do you even know?
What we've been hearing,
Yeah.
that is what WizKids is suggesting. But with anything tournament, anything officially run, unless they're the ones there physically handing out the packs, all of their formats, all of their operations, even the product that they use, even their pricing, is all at their suggestion at the retailer's discretion.
Right.
But ultimately, an event this size, WizKids sends the product in order to operate at the expected level. WizKids sends enough prizes for the top 8, WizKids, as well as a certain number of Battle Royales. They send enough product for, I believe, my understanding would be the maximum number of players for the major main event tournament, as well as enough to run X number of Battle Royales. That's my understanding of the product level. Now, I'm not a retailer. I haven't had this conversation with anybody at the retail level, and I probably should take a second to probably talk to somebody at the retail level and see if they can give me these kinds of details that they get, because they do have to eat the cost to a certain degree. They have to buy the product from WizKids. They have to buy the pricing from WizKids. This is why these tournaments are a little bit more expensive than the retail value of 2 packs. These prizes ain't free, and the stores have to feel that, which means, go to these events with the understanding that the reason you're paying more isn't just because you're getting 2 packs of figures, but because these prizes cost more. Now, if you bomb out of the main event, it sucks. It costs you more than 2 packs. But you go into those Battle Royales, and they'll start to pay for themselves because they give you 3 ID cards and a con exclusive figure to dish out as prizes. That is worth its own. Because if you go on eBay and check out the con exclusive ID cards, you're making minimum $20 US. Now, Mike, that doesn't mean as much to you as it does to Matt. Matt, $20 US, man.
Our dollar really sucks right now. It's so painful.
That's groceries for a week, son. But they end up paying for themselves in the fact that the prizes are sought after, but not a lot. As many people as do show up at these events, there's still a lot of people who play this game that don't show up to these events and are willing to pay that secondary market price because they wanted that thing, they couldn't get that thing. Some of them will try to talk down, but you got to understand is that it costs them money to get the thing. So this is the con exclusives themselves. They pay for themselves for the players, and that's why it's a better attitude to go in and say, okay, these guys did spend some money, but ultimately they're not going to see the kind of money on an ID card that I'm going to see. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the best attitude to walk into it. You walk in, you say, yeah, okay, it's a little bit more pricey. I'm going to get a bunch of figures I already have, whatever. I'm going to get either a con ID card, or a con figure because I joined in the Battle Royale. I got top 8 in this set. I'm walking out with $100. It may not be $100, but I'm walking out with $100 whether somebody likes it or not. Mostly because the retail value of these things is one thing, but what people are willing to pay for the convenience of not having to have gone to these events is a little higher. So what did this conversation start as?
Matt wanted to know if opens were guaranteed world finest.
So yeah, the idea behind it is yes, we're expecting world's finest. Wow, that's how far I got away from that topic. Why didn't you stop me? The expectation is that WizKids set a maximum number of players, and they're the expectation. My understanding and expectation that the retailer is expecting to purchase at that level of. For this event. So they'll have their regular retail of, we got to sell, we have 8 cases coming in because 8 people are buying cases, and then we're going to have a couple cases for the shelves. They'll have that regular number. And then they're going to have this number of figures, or a number of cases where it's like, we expect a certain number of players to show up just to play in this event, and we have to be ready to accommodate all of them.
Yeah.
So that should be the expectation. If that's not how they operate, well, give me a baseball bat because I got to go talk to somebody.
Yeah, I was just wondering what your experience at Nationals was and other WizKids types events, or what you've heard through the grapevine.
Our experience at Nationals is Carta Magica set up all of their events at 32 players max. There's 4 events. There was 2 of them constructed, 2 of them sealed. The 2 sealed, one event was Trinity War and Flash, and the other event was Guardians of the Galaxy and Flash.
Yeah.
Chances are WizKids had a bunch of Flash, because as great as it was, because there was only 3 chases, not a lot of people were buying as much. Because the number of chases in a set, believe it or not, actually does affect how much of a set people do purchase. So Flash didn't get purchased a great amount. So the way I see it, they sent them X number of Flash and then said, here's some Trinity War and Guardians of the Galaxy that we also had, so use this for the event.
Now, like Jason was talking about earlier with the original WizKids Opens that happened in 2014, is that they produced extra Guardians. So they probably still had Guardians left over, and then at the time that we did Nationals, Trinity War was actually the newest set. So it was like, here's the new set, here's some extra Flash that we had, here's some extra Guardians that we had. Now, the very first year that we did Nationals back in 2014, the sealed were starting to be whatever that they had left in stock. So we had the final sealed of the night was done with Incredible Hulk.
Yeah,
and Invincible Iron Man.
If I remember correctly, the first sealed was actually sets. Like, it was all Invincible Iron Man?
I believe it may have been, yeah.
Yeah. And then the second sealed was, well, whatever we have left. I'm not sure what happened.
We're not even just seeing that. Is that they actually took a black garbage bag, threw all of the boosters they had left in based on the amount of players, and was like, we're picking random out of the bag. I got, for the final sealed, I got 1 booster of Invincible Iron Man, 1 booster of Incredible Hulk.
Which had recently gone golden, if I remember correctly.
Yes. And that was my sealed. I still qualified for the next day, and then they did all 32 day 2 single elimination the very first year, and I bombed out.
We both bombed out, Amber. We both bombed out.
But that's how it was set up. But again, that was the very first year that they had run it in Canada. So now, and that was before the WizKids Opens ever happened, I think.
Yeah. Well, WizKids Opens only occurred in 2014. Our first Nationals
was early 2014.
Was earlier in 2014, right?
Yeah, so they hadn't actually got to the Opens yet, which now every time they do these, like the more and more they do these tournaments, the better they're actually getting at organizing and running these tournaments.
Yeah, and honestly, I love Comic Book Addiction and the people in charge there. They're about to run into one of the most complicated and insane processes of running a HeroClix tournament that they've ever been a part of.
Sure.
And now, my understanding is they've got 4 bodies kind of running judging, and I'm hoping they have extra people to organize people for purchasing, getting in, organizing. This is what they have is an undertaking. Now, they've gone the extra step. They've got a bigger venue than their store, which I'm hoping Carta Magica is looking forward to in the next couple years. Hopefully this year is going to be the first one where they have a bigger venue. And I understand Comic Book Addiction is going to be running it at a church not too far from the store, though further for us because we're walking from the GO station.
I'll give you a lift if you need a lift.
What's that?
I'll give you a lift if you need a lift.
Okay. Yeah, we gotta give a double check on the map. Is it walking distance from the store?
I don't even know where it is, but
okay.
I drive past the
Google
GO
mapped
station.
it.
I have to drive past the GO station to get to wherever I'm going anyway. So.
Okay, and we're gonna be with one other.
Yeah.
One other player. So.
You know what? All the regular players there are all geared up to help out whatever way they can. You know.
Awesome.
So
That sounds
I'm excited to help out and.
That's what I love about this game.
I know,
Very
everybody
so
loves
friendly.
each other. It's awesome.
But going where I was going with this is Comic Book Addiction is going to make mistakes with this. They're going to have some problems. Step 1, don't trust the WES.
Just in the pairings. Just in the pairings.
Or at least have them double check the pairings.
Yeah.
Warn them on that. Because I've been complaining about something that happened at Carta Magica for the past year, and they don't deserve to keep people don't deserve to keep hearing
it
about
wasn't
this.
their fault.
It's not their fault, but I'm angry about it because it happened, and it happened at Carta Magica. But yeah, double check those. Don't trust the computer 100%. That said, I'm sure they've got the ability to handle this, and they're going to learn from this, and hopefully they can take further events and more events, because WizKids Opens are an exciting opportunity for Canada. Nationals is a wonderful thing to hold, and hopefully, should Carta Magica decide they don't want to run it anymore, and Comic Book Addiction locally is able to pick up the reins, that would be fantastic. Or if another store even would be able to pick up the reins. My understanding is that Comic Book Addiction is actually the only one that recorded all 3 games in the GTA, which is
not a lot of stores run X-Wing.
Yeah.
So
not X-Wing, Attack Wing.
Attack Wing, sorry.
X-Wing is made by Fantasy Flight, honey. We're a WizKids store.
Attack Wing.
Yeah.
Star Trek.
And D&D.
Live long.
Look, just because we got your shitty director for our good movies. The one fandom we argue about is the Trekkie versus the Star Wars. I don't hate Star Wars, but I'm more Trekkie and she's more Star Wars.
Really?
I don't know how we ever got together,
It's because
honestly.
we both like comic books. Anyway, yeah. So these WizKids Opens, like we said, hopefully the expectation is the product is there. The other expectation is that I will have less gas. Our expectation is that they understand that this is going to be quite the undertaking, and I know they're going to make it. Doesn't matter. They're going to be prepared. They're going to be awesome, and they're going to be pumped. They're going to make mistakes, and I'm going to be patient with it because this is year 1. And if I hear somebody complaining, I will give them the reality of it. That's what I do.
With those swift.
I do not swift backhand people unless they deserve it.
I mean, Amber, your provincials was run very, very well, I felt. I don't know. Were you in charge?
Thank you.
Well, part of what happened with provincials is me and Amber have been running sizable HeroClix tournaments at the Comic Warehouse. And that includes several, when we say sizable, the GTA hasn't had a great deal of rock experience and a great deal of nationals or competitive experience. So our goal with running ROC Winamaps or Rock Winamaps is making sure that everything is organized and done correctly. And whether anybody wants to admit it or not, we did make one mistake in the first Winamap that we ran, but it was such a minor mistake that we kind of threw it under the rug. And it was a mispairing with point values on the loser bracket. Now, ultimately, it was still loser versus loser and loser versus loser, so it wasn't worth a correction. So,
But it was just that, like, this guy scored 100, this guy scored 50, and they were paired together where another guy had scored 100 and this guy scored 50, and, like, the 50s and the 100s could have been together, but they ended up crossing. It was negligible.
Negligible, yes.
Negligible.
As well, I have a lot of experience having been a player in Magic the Gathering and Versus System, high-level competitive, and we also have played at Canadian Nationals, so we saw some of the pitfalls they ran into and kind of corrected them ourselves. And we use, like, one of the things is that we used a mixture of the computer and the paper to make sure everything was cool, right? And we wanted to make it as efficient as possible because we got to keep things running smoothly. So step 1 is to make sure you record as you go. This is for any judge and organizer. Record as you go. That's important because that speeds things up a great deal. Second, check your work. And by check your work, I mean make sure the computer matches your paper. Because if your paper doesn't match the computer, it's time to repair. Now, if you don't trust the computer, then make sure you're setting up your pairings real quick. Because you got to be quick with Control F on your computer. You got to be
Pair
quick with
as you
something.
go.
Pair as you go if you have to.
Make bracket piles.
Yeah. Because one of the things we do is we use the ROC, when we run ROC or ROC tournaments, we take those play sheets, and we go, okay, these are the 2 wins, these are the 1-1s, and these are the 0-2s. And then we do points from there, and we keep them stacked in a certain degree as we go. This all comes from experience of things. Now, I wouldn't suggest this method for Dice Masters, because guess what? They do strength schedule, which let the computer do it. I can't stress that enough. When it comes to strength of schedule, just let it happen. Just let it go, right?
Now, specifically when we said to Matt, you said that provincials was run very well. One of the big things that we did with provincials was delegation, and that was we had 4 judges on board, and we had one, which was Paul Rocky, and he was the computer guy. He put in all the results. He made sure the computer was good. That was his job. He updated the computer after every game was done, and then he did all the pairings. Then we had 2 floor judges, and that was me and Glenn, and we were the ones running around answering people's questions, double-checking with WS for any answers we didn't know, double-checking with each other for any answers that we didn't know, and on the spot, constantly interacting with the players. And then we had our 4th judge, Will, who was running the side events for us. So, and there was no real crossover between the sections as to where we were putting the judges, where everybody had their job, everybody was doing their job, and because everybody was doing their own job, it all flowed and worked together, rather than crossing that over, having too many people in charge of too many things and running them ragged, or having 3 or 4 people doing the same job and screwing it up because this person did that and then this person came in and fixed it and then this person changed it, and that's where you get that overlap, and mistakes happen if you have one person doing too many things or too many people doing one thing.
I think there was one slight stumble at any point as far as smoothness is concerned, and that's because I raised my hand when Amber was passing me in my game by. I have a strict rule when Amber is judging and I'm playing in the tournament where I can't let Amber do my judgments if there's more than one judge, because one of the biggest problems that you could run into is the accusation of collusion. And I don't want to even allow the accusation. So I will immediately go, can I get a judge? No, Amber, go away. It happened in the Rock in Windsor. Actually, what ended up happening is Amber ended up judging every other game, and then the other judge was at my table almost at all times.
Which was actually kind of funny, because then if he ran into any roadblocks where he didn't actually know how to answer any of Jason's questions, he pulled me aside so I could answer for him so that he could delegate it to Jason.
I'm hoping he didn't use my name at any point. Like,
if all he was doing was judging your games, then it's kind of hard to hide that fact, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was at my games a lot, so I don't know if he was just a big fan of the channel and wanted to see how I was doing or seeing how the game was going, or if he was just, tentative about running the other games. I'm not judging. I'm not judging him for what he did. It was the tournament was run really well. Amber and what was his name?
I don't remember.
It was Robert Paul or something. I'm sorry. Dan, tell me, quick! But ultimately, that's another agreement. I think we've mentioned it before, where if Amber is a judge, because her passion is in judging and knowing the rules. My passion is trying to get better at this game and win. But sometimes those two kind of meet each other, and they're not supposed to, so it's kind of like that, get out of the way.
Ruin the camera in the meantime.
Camera is just fine. So I think we've way over-answered his question at this point.
I don't know what the question was.
The question was about the product that the WizKids opens.
Oh my god, we're still on that question?
This train is derailed.
God damn it, Jason.
All right, I'm going to take a second, and I'm going to address a question one of our other patrons asked electronically of me on Facebook. And that is, what is the viability of a one-man army in constructed play? And there is an answer to that, and it is not a 300-point character. Actually, the point cost of a one-man army has gone down because the ability to make him better has gone up. And I want to address a team that was played at Canadian Nationals, though not as effective nowadays with certain changes, minutia changes, if you will. But it was the Superman from Trinity War, played at 250 points, armed with a parallax, and it had a yellow Sinestro Core battery on it. Now, that's all it was. It was Sinestro battery with constructs, Superman, parallax. Now, at the time, though, entities counted as characters, which means what ended up happening is the parallax counted as a Sinestro Core character. Now, by possessing Superman, Superman became a Sinestro Core character, so it actually became a two-man theme team, which gave him +2 to his dice roll, which is reasonable in a 300-point game. It's not my cop team that had +4, but I didn't play that on day 2, so it doesn't matter. Now, add in the fact that at 250 points, you can pretty much count that your opponent is going to get -2 to his attack unless he's pulse waving you. So I'm pretty sure if he lost to anything, it was Pulse Wave. And that's a major factor in that one-man army. So there is a viability to it. It's not as upfront as it used to be. It is not a 300-point character anymore. It is in fact generally a 250-point character with some kind of extra additions as well to make him better beyond that. So it's a hidden tentpole. It's one figure on the board with things making him better. Now, in the modern game, the way the equip rules have changed, that Parallax will no longer count as a character as it is equipment. It actually changes the root of what it is as a character. So it actually just becomes Superman with the Sinestro Core team ability or keyword added on, and with a Sinestro batter. So it is literally a one-figure army that won't win dice rolls in most cases, but it's a figure that can still fare fairly well in most maps, and then throw a nurse on him at some point, and he'll get better if he gets hit. So one-man army exists. It has changed. And it takes a fair bit of bravery and a lot of patience in order to play it. Because the player who is using it, it's a Superman. He's strong. And then add +1 to his stats. His stats are higher. And then your stats are lower for just having attacked him. So that's kind of what ended up happening as far as the figure is concerned.
This is why I'm upset that Supergirl is only 190 points.
Yeah. When I was talking to our patron the other day, he was like, "How can I make a team with Supergirl?" And every inclination went towards Red Tornado. Just to, it's still a two-figure team, but Red Tornado is cool. But then I was like, "Okay, do you have anything that you can use as an entity that's possessing?" And he's like, "No." And then all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh right, not everybody has things." You know what? I have to say, I feel bad when I do that to players. And I felt that pain today because I was talking to a high-level player from Vancouver who's really good at Dice Masters, and my Dice Masters collection is on par with a lot of those people who would ask me for advice. So I was asking this player, like, "Hey, what can I do to make this team better?" And then they'd start telling me about these things like, "Okay, I don't have that. No, don't got that. I might be able to get that. Give me a second." And that's kind of so I understand the pain now. And I'll try to be better about it, but there's, like, when it comes to the competitive play, there's a path to follow, and unfortunately, one of the factors in being one of the really good competitive players is being able to collect and spend.
Or borrow.
Or
Have
borrow.
good friends and just borrow stuff.
Adam Friedman had purchased a Parallax and had to borrow the rest of his team from his U.S. Nationals winning team, and so a lot of players win with borrowed figures.
Yeah.
So
don't think that you have to spend all your money.
The community is more friendly than people give them credit for. Or call me. If you're local, then we can talk because I have a ton of things I'm fully willing to loan. All right. I think we've addressed that to a degree. So yes, one-man army can happen. It takes a lot of work to do it, and you got to be very careful when you play it. But don't discount it. It happens, and it's very viable, and it could reinvigorate itself once even after all those batteries are gone.
Please
Who knows?
be gone.
Amber, the trend is August. All right, Mike.
Alrighty, so this next question would have to be, whereas I have yet to play my little Mr. Mixelplick, and I was really shocked and disappointed that another website had given out and written a blog post about how to defeat that very piece. And I want to know, was that really a fair thing to do for the other players?
Okay, which blog post explained how to beat him?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Which website was it?
I didn't really want to give it out, so more people.
Give it out. This guy deserves to be. Not the author. I just want to know what the website is.
Yeah, that was HC Realms.
HC Realms. Okay. HC Realms has a lot of articles. It's cool. Now, here's the thing: it's possible to beat any figure. It's possible to beat Nick Fury. Sometimes it's difficult. And if somebody says, "Hey, this is how you beat this figure," well, that's cool. That's fine. I'm still going to use it so that you actually have to put in the effort in order to beat it. Because that's one of those things is somebody says, hey, I've got a way to beat X. Cool. I'm bringing X. So make sure you got your Y. Right? Because if you have to find a way to beat a thing, then you're pigeonholing yourself into beating that thing. Now, was it, I have to ask, was it an individual figure that was able to do it, or?
I want to say, yeah, it was like a little combination of things like that.
Oh, it was a combination of things.
Yeah, it was a strategy effort.
Okay, yeah, and that's where it comes in is now, okay, cool, you can beat that Mr. Mix's Pitlick, but he makes up 70 points of my 300-point team. I've got 230 points still to go. Did you see Patrick Yaboko's team that he won using Mr. Mix's Pitlick in North Carolina, I believe it was?
No, I'm not getting around to
okay. It had 9 figures on it.
Okay.
So cool.
300 points.
Whatever you devoted to killing or to dealing with my 70 points, I've still got 230 left to work with, right? So unless his point value was 70 or less in order to deal with this figure, I'm sorry, I'm not sold. You can use the strategies and whatnot to beat that figure, but I do believe in the overcommitment stratagem, where if you have to spend 130 to beat 70, I still have 230 to punish your 130. And if I can make sure I use my points better than you can, okay, right? That's one of the things about Mr. Mix's Pitlick is. I haven't read the article. Was it a front page article or?
Yes, it was a front page article.
Okay, I'm a little behind, and they are a sponsor, so I apologize to HC Realms. I mostly use it for the units section, occasionally trickle into the forums, and I will occasionally catch an article that goes, oh, let's see how this goes. So when it comes down to it, I shouldn't be looking at it. I'm going to read it later. But in a nutshell is, if you have to devote a certain amount of your... Oh, here we go. Thank you.
No problem.
So how did he deal? Did he have like set figures or avoid 1d6? Okay. Look.
No, it's just general information.
Yeah. Like for here. Precision Strike will help guarantee damage reducers as well as deal with other pesky super sense equipped characters. That's already been a given, but that doesn't work against things like Invincible or making you miss, right? Because that's another thing. Mr. Mix's Pitlick can turn a hit into a miss or a miss into a hit. He's a super strong probability control. Open maps can hurt you depending on what you're facing. It's nice as if you aren't facing Mixie, you don't have to choose an open map. He's got a lot of getaway potential. So if you're going to use an open map, I'm not picking holes in the writer's article. I just want to point that out. Is one of the things about this character is he's not the be-all, end-all. He's exactly as Mr. Mix's Pitlick is in the comic book. He's obnoxious, and he can really, really ruin your day if you let him. And that's what it looks like this article is doing. This article, I'm going to say it right now, is it's a good thing, and this is a lot of the thinking points any player playing against Mr. Mix's Pitlick should already be considering. And this is one of those articles that I actually applaud for existing because it helps a lot of newer players understand the thought process of the game. On my cursory glance, it didn't give the answers. It gave the solutions in a vague enough way where you still had to put some thought into it. So this guy hasn't
play X character to beat him.
Yeah.
It was, look at what your characters can do. Can any of your characters do these things to beat him?
Yeah. And one of the first things, Easton Brock actually recently wrote an article on the Majestics Apex Insiders. I don't know if it was one of the free articles. It may be one of the premium site articles. So if you remember the premium site, by all means, jump in on that. But when I read it, it was just like there's a mental game to this. And the first part of the mental game is if you see a Mr. Mix's Pitlick, it's time to think about him. And that's what the crux of this HC Realms article is saying is, yeah, he exists. Be ready for him and understand that he's got things. So if your team doesn't have a certain number of things, he's going to be a bigger problem for you than you expect. So
zeroing the tester.
Yeah, you will be tested. Be ready. Be ready for this guy to exist. And if your team has a hard problem with it, it's time to push his limits, because he does have limitations. It does take a power action to add a new dice. Force it. Force him to take the power action as frequently as possible. Part of that is making attack rolls or succeeding on impervious rolls. Hold your probability control. If Mr. Mix's Pitlick is the first one to change your thing down, save your probability control to change that situation around, because it's a timing thing where Mr. Mix's Pitlick can cut the dice off and then somebody else can prop it, right? So, but at the same time, if you're using him, be smart about it. Know what your opponent has ready for it. I mean, all his counterpoints can be further counterpointed. They have probability control. They rolled they needed a 4 to hit, and they hit. Is it really worth it to Mix's Pitlick, change one of those dice to make it a miss, and then have him re-roll? Because chances are that 4 is probably going to hit again.
Unless you're me lately, apparently.
I saw your Civil War game today.
Civil War game?
3 games we played.
Were you done? I hate... You know what? Here's what I hate. On camera, my dice are hot. Get me into a tournament. I got some stories for you, son. And that camera is just ruining my reputation. Let me tell you. But yeah, so don't let an article like that dissuade you from using Mr. Mix's Pitlick. All that article did was tell people this character exists. There are some ways that you have to think in order to beat it, but subsequently, being the player using Mr. Mix's Pitlick, you look at that article, use that article to your advantage and say, okay, if this is what he has to think about now, this is what I'm going to think around. So if he's got these options that this guy has presented, I am going to create options that he doesn't have available to him. Or take those options that he does have and work around that and work through that or push through that, you know? And part of the most success of that figure, you got to know the probability. And back in the day, Jake Williams wrote a great or put up a great article on HC Realms with regards to the probability on 2 dice, and it's actually probably one of the most useful things you can read. Even if you can find, just understand the probability hidden behind D6s in general can really make you a very, very weaponized monster with Mr. Mix's Pitlick.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
No.
I'll tell you later.
All right. All right.
Yeah, Michael, play mixing. If
Play him, he's
your
awesome.
friends read this article, it's still a big problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of goes down to question of sportsmanship type of thing. Like, should this have been in the spoilers realm? Like, no, don't give it away too soon. People haven't all played with them yet. Maybe further down the line, it's okay. Now that everyone's had a chance to play, all right, this is how you can better help yourself with it.
I actually look at this as a beginner's guide. This is what this figure does. Be ready for it. It's not so much a spoiler. I believe what he was doing was the correct behavior, which is like Metafix. When I do an episode, you'll note I don't give you too many hard answers or hard solutions. I give you the thought process, and he gives you all he offers here is the thought process. Work within this situation. You can't cover all those bases. I guarantee it. I looked at that and said, okay, you can bring precision strike, but that costs points. You can avoid overcommitting to Mr. Mix's Pitlick. That's fine. Make sure you're committing correctly outside of that. And this is all just good game strategy in general. It's not just around Mr. Mix's Pitlick. That's a cover. This is a character that forces you to be careful, and that's all this article is. This is in the grand scheme of things, it's a beginner's guide that this character exists, but in the grander scheme of things, not trusting a certain number of things that he can mess up, it's legitimate thinking, and it's how I got to the cop cars, or not the cop cars, the police brutality 2.0. It's not counting on things and just being the aggressor and making the thing happen. Forcing the position is one of the best strategies in the game, and if you can force a position, do it. If you can't force a position, you are going to have a hard time with that in the situation anyway. So it's not so much a spoiler as it is. I think there should be more of these for Nick Fury as much as there is for
There
Mr.
might be
McSpirit.
one. He's done a whole series.
There's one of these articles for Nick Fury.
Yeah. So I mean, this is a good thing because this helps the balance level. Is if you understand how to beat certain characters with the mindset as opposed to the hard set, you're actually better off than 90% of the players. If you can think your way around it without being given the answer, it's one of those things. We all complained at our math teacher when they said they deducted marks for not showing our work because we saw the solution at first, but we didn't show the work. If you can't do the work, it's useless to you to get the answer.
It's like look at Worlds a few years back, and everybody was playing team bases, and then all of a sudden the Ghost Rider showed up,
Yep.
and it's like, oh hey, Ghost Rider beats team bases, and then everybody was playing Ghost Rider, and it took like one person to find out how to beat Ghost Rider as well as a team base, and broaden the meta and just be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do something completely out of nowhere and not copy the hard set that everybody else is doing, and just think on my own and be like, okay, I'm gonna run team and be ready for everything.
And that was the double Blue Beetle team, right?
I think so.
Yeah, somebody had brought a double Blue Beetle team because that turns around and says, well, okay, Ghost Rider, you hit me. That was nice. Because he'll ignore that damage and take an action token instead. God, I'm so glad Protected is gone. We'll take an action token instead of damage. No big loss, right? And that's the thing is that it's about thinking around the situation. So that article is good. If somebody said, here's A, B, C character to beat Mr. Mxyzptlk, I'd say that was a worthless article for the most part, specifically because it's not opening up the thought process. So the answer is not there. It's just the work to get to the answer is there.
Okay.
I feel like we rained on his parade. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool.
No, I think it's an advantage if you know how to defeat your own team. You can watch out for that coming from your opponent.
Yeah, I've had a couple interviews with Kenny Pena, and one of the things that he says is, if he can't beat his team, he won't play his team.
Mm-hmm.
Because knowing how to beat your team means you know how to play against the counter. A prime example of that is in the top 8 at Canadian Nationals, he played against a Jenny Sparks. Well,
Yeah.
Jenny Sparks is supposed to be the answer to gluttony, isn't she? Amber? What happened there? Kenny knew how to beat his team, which means he knew how to
Not beat his team.
how to not lose with his team, and that information can go a long way. So that article is twofold. Sure, a lot of people know how to play against Mr. Mxyzptlk, but at the same time, just as
Now
many people
you know
using
how to
Mr.
play
Mxyzptlk
him.
know what strategies they're going to use. All right, sorry, Matt. Did you have another question?
I had a quick question that goes with that about your disclaimer after Metafix episodes where you say this is not meant for the casual player at the game and that kind of thing. I'm just wondering the secret origin of that. If you offended somebody or something like that, because I was like, wow, that's very polite. What if who was getting upset when you were giving meta advice?
What was your team when Metafix was born? It was Cyclops, Wolverine. What else? Okay. So we go back way back in the day. We might have been in the old apartment still at that game, weren't we?
We started Metafix here.
Did we start Metafix here?
When we first moved here, we started Metafix.
Okay, but it was so the game was played in the old apartment. All right. So in our old apartment, it was a game way back when we were still using Amber. I think your 640 by 480 camera.
My little elf
Your
power
Nikon
shot.
Elf power shot. Canon Elf power shot. Anyway, it was one of our older games, and Amber's team was an X-Men themed team that included Cyclops, Wolverine, and something else. All right, cool. And then I had come up with this brilliant idea that an
is this the armor one?
This is the armor theme team, where my armor theme team consisting of a Book of Skulls with Split Lip, who has the armor keyword, the Silver Samurai.
I was doing Giant Size X-Men 1.
That's what
Giant Size X-Men, where it was like Wolverine, Storm, Colossus, Thunderbird, Nightcrawler.
Anyway, so the idea was my Silver Samurai would get carried out first turn by the Iron Man drone, who would, because it's the beginning of the turn I can still do free action, so I drop a hammer on the Silver Samurai. Now the Silver Samurai has a 14 attack. I give him Scotty's hammer to give him exploit weakness. So then turn 2, wherever you move, that's fine. I've got a 10-12 movement with phasing that I can use as a free action, and then make an attack with Blades, Claws, and Fangs and exploit weakness at a 14 attack.
Yeah, it was gross.
I looked at it, was one of those things like, I've got it on paper, let's try it on camera. Amber didn't play as hard as I did for that game, and this was the birth of Metafix, was this team, because the first comment on that video was, wow, it's wonderful to watch somebody play a meta team versus a not-so-meta team. And I was like, yeah, I kind of feel bad about that game. So that was the birth of Metafix. But that disclaimer came with that birthplace. Is the reason I wanted to do Metafix was to discuss the competitive game. And the reason I put that disclaimer on there is because I have a table game with my friends. I love them to death. But they are a bunch of tryhards because all they play is our table game. And it is, when I've been playing soft, and people tell me play soft when it's not a competitive tournament, okay, I play soft, but my butthole friends play really, really, really strong teams over and over again. It can get
fun.
It's not fun, right? And I understand that it's not fun, and yet, I get crapped on when I play hard, and then they play hard, and it's like, seriously, you just crapped on me for something like this last week, right? And then they give me this pouty face because I can come up with something significantly bigger than what they come up with. Long story short, I came up with that disclaimer for that specific reason. I definitely enforce casual one side, competitive another side. And there's 2 reasons for this. One, no casual player likes to play against a competitive team. And if a dude is playing the new Mutant or the new Warriors, they don't want to see a resource. Trust me on that. New Warriors have let me down so much, and I love them so much still. But at the same time, as well, a competitive player needs to take a couple seconds here and there and just play a shitty game. And I apologize for the language, but you do have to play the game not so hard every so often, because otherwise you will suffer burnout. And burnout does exist as far as competitive play. If all you do is try hard, this is a game from funny books, man. You gotta temper it every so often. So every so often, play the X-Men versus the Brotherhood versus your good friend. Every so often, turn to a buddy and say, you know what? Let's play 800 points of Avengers versus Masters of Evil. Spoiler alert, the Masters of Evil are going to get their butts kicked, but you know what? You played it out anyway because you had fun, and that's okay. It's okay to lose those games. It's okay to have fun in those games because those are beer and pretzel games. Those are games you sit at the table and go, yeah, we read comic books.
Those are games that you take pictures of and put on Facebook.
Those are games that, you and your buddies can talk about for months because silly things happen in the funniest of games. But at the same time, those casual games, sometimes you accidentally come across an idea like a police team that involves Banshee, Cerise, Rocket Raccoon, and a Central City police captain.
God damn it, Jason.
It was an accident! It was a complete accident, and I mean the team is out of the meta now. There's no way that the team wins in against some of the things that I've played against recently. And there are some teams that had some big weaknesses against. Anyway, but long story short, it is definitely important to make sure that if you play this game competitively, You got to have something that you do casually, or even play this game casually every so often, and make silly things. Because, to be brutally honest, there has to be a split where you can have some fun every so often and laugh about this game, because that keeps you playing the game.
Because not only will you experience a burnout, your opponents will.
Yeah.
And you'll get to the point
they'll
where
be the first to tell you.
they don't want to play you anymore. And that's just not fun for anybody.
Yeah. I do definitely enforce the idea of a practice night for competitive play, where everybody knows it's Fight Club rules. You don't talk about practice night. You do not talk about practice night. If you're new to practice night, you have to play.
But you don't talk about practice.
But you do not talk about... But anyway, yeah. Practice night is an important thing for competitive play, and fun night is also important as well. Personally, actually, I play more casually at tournaments locally than I do at practice night. Practice night is where I turn it on. If you catch me in most tournaments except for anything named Rock or Worlds or Nationals or Opens, you're not getting... Yeah, and even in, well, that's mostly because you've been judging, but mostly in the storyline events too, I turn it off. A lot of my players locally, when they beat me, they get excited. But, I mean, and some of them do beat me, let's be honest. There's a couple players who do have my number. But at the same time, you know, don't get too excited, because a lot of the time you do get me on my off game. And then every so often I just have this little streak where it's like, you know what? I want next week's prize. I'm taking it. And I don't feel bad about it because I wanted it.
Whereas if you play me locally, where it's not a Rock or an Open or a Nationals, I turn off my judge brain when I'm playing.
She forgets rules when she's playing.
I'm really
Amber will
bad
watch
at
your
it.
game and correct all the rules. She's in the game, she will make so many blunders.
The last time I played a tournament, I won the entire tournament because I was using theme probs on an animal theme team. That's not the rules anymore.
No.
Cheater.
No, I'm not going to say that the entire 3 rounds were won because I had theme props, but it wasn't until the final round where Jason is like, why are you using theme props? You have a generic theme team. Yep.
What did it, Amber?
Don't play me casually if you expect me to know the rules.
The Hill Clix police are coming for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's the root of that disclaimer is there's 2 types of games, and I do recognize that there are casual games and there are meta games. And yes, I spilled beer on me. And it's very But I wasn't
sure if that was our camera or...
beverage. Okay. But yes, so I do stress the fact that when I'm talking about the metafigs, take that information in your head, but don't turn it into, you know, your mind thought in a beer and pretzels game or a table. I refer to it as a table game because it's generally played at the kitchen table. This game isn't really meant for the small scale. So I definitely stress, you know, when you're playing a table game or the kitchen table game, don't use what I'm saying in metafigs. I am just trying to kind of make sure that the strategy, the competitive strategy, is available to everybody, or at least the mindset. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Mike, get Mike's next question while I grab a drink.
Jason's running away to get some more booze. Next
question.
Alrighty, so in the probably tomorrow night's game is going to require 700 points, all DC, and I am thinking of either a Mystics or a Quintessence team, like Mystics team or Quintessence thing. Like, which one do you think would be better at or more advantageous? In my most awkward way of asking. I've 2 ideas for a team: a Mystics team ability team or a Quintessence team ability team. Which one do you think would be better?
Go just sleep, Derek. Sorry, that answer was go Justice League Dark.
Okay.
It's like, just do a Justice League Dark keyword theme team. You got most of the Mystics in there, and Riesling DC with that, you're going to get Zatanna, you're going to get Constantine, you probably can throw a Nick Necro in there.
He already has the teams. What do you say?
I don't care.
All right, answer your way, I'll answer my way.
That was me answering my way.
All right, cool. All right.
Justice League Dark.
So,
I don't care about your options. Justice League Dark.
All right. So, Mystics versus Quintessence goes this way. Mystics is a cool team ability. Don't get me wrong. But it's not without its problems. Problem number one is that the fact is, if Mystics team ability is working, you're probably losing. And that's not 100% of the case. There are characters that get around that. Such characters as Gluttony, who, you know, takes 1 damage at a time and has a Mystic team ability, so punishes you for attacking him. And granted, in a grander game, Gluttony's cool, but Jenny Sparks and Nick Fury say, "What's up?"
DC only.
But it is DC only, so Jenny Sparks says, "What's up?" But that's not a reason to not play a character. So we go to the facts is that depending on your Mystics build, it will be how much damage can you mitigate or deal with. If it's things like Gluttony, things with Impervious, Invincible, or Indomitable, or not Indomitable, Impervious, Invincible, or Invulnerable, you might be a little safer. Because when you take the damage, it's not because you've taken much damage. At the same time, though, if it's characters that are soft and do take, you know, a fair bit of damage, you've taken 2 or 3 or 4, and they've taken 1. The payoff in their case is sometimes negligible. When you move into Quintessence, that's a cool team ability, don't get me wrong. And it's not without its own single weakness, which is if you rely on combat abilities such as flight, such as sharpshooter, or improved targeting or improved movement, those aren't safe from the outwit that you can't be countered. That's about it, though. I mean, and then outside of that, there's the, of course, overarching rule of Pulse Wave. And part of the conversation I had recently with somebody was, if I have been arguing with you for half an hour about how good a figure is, and you've gotten a Pulse Wave, I still won. Because that's how far you've had to go. And that's really the biggest weakness of a Quintessence team is that one power. But that's everybody's weakness, because if I go back to your Mystics team, well, you're not dealing Mystics damage if I'm Pulse Waving you. Yeah, Pulse Wave is a very terrible argument, if you ask me, because if you've had to get the Pulse Wave, then yes, I've proven that my character is good, because you have to go as far as Pulse Wave. And if my character has 50 points nearby in the form of a man who is blue and lightning-like, well, I've taken that advantage away now, haven't I? So, it's a kind of a two-way street. Now, it depends on the Quintessence character past that. There are quite a few good Quintessence characters. I know Tachyon's really good. I know Highfather is everybody's nightmare. I know
Oh my gosh, Highfather in a 700-point game.
Phantom Stranger is really, really potent as well. Highfather, you got to be careful in a 700-point game because he won't be the one who's packed it. It'll be somebody who's bigger than him, so you got to be careful with that. But anyway, what I'm saying is Quintessence has, when a character gets Quintessence, it's oftentimes a stamp that says, this character is going to be good, so let's make him better. Whereas Mystics is, this guy's magical poofy poof. Put Mystics on him. That way it represents the magic and the bargaining, and the devil's going to get you, because witchcraft. And that's basically how the Mystic stamp goes, right? Is the character has to fit the theme. If they use magic, they're Mystics. If they're really good and godlike, well, that's when they get Quintessence. So oftentimes the character who is Quintessence is already pretty good in getting it, whereas the character who gets Mystics is just getting Mystics because they're magical. So as far as the two teams are concerned, Quintessence, while people will say, well, I'm going to out-action you, well, no, you're not, because I don't care about pushing. where your Mystics team, there's not as many characters with Mystics that are indomitable or pack willpower or are also quintessence. Although, again, I've mentioned Gluttony, so Gluttony fits on both teams. Hint, hint. And it is also equal parts of obnoxious. So.
Also, with you were saying it was 700 points, with quintessence, like Jason was saying, with these high godlike characters, you're gonna say have 4, 5, maybe characters at 700 points in a quintessence team, whereas Mystics, you're gonna have like 20 in a 700 point team.
Exaggeration.
Exaggeration, yes. But a Mystics in 700 points, you'll be leaning more towards a Swarm, whereas Quintessence in 700 points, you'll be looking more towards the big, heavy beat stick guys. Now, that's not to say that you don't have big, heavy beat stick Mystics. I know the OP kit Wonder Woman was, what, 200 points?
180.
180, and she's got Mystics. Dormammu's 300. What was, does Frankenstein get it, or is he just...
I don't think he gets... He's 93, though.
Okay, yeah.
he's not exactly 10 fully.
But yeah, so you don't have too much of the big primary hitter tentpole guys in the Mystics, whereas you're gonna find them in the Quintessence. So it also depends on where you feel comfortable commanding an army in 700 points. Do you feel more comfortable being able to actually distribute all 7 of those actions, or do you feel better with the bigger, beefier, heavier guys that are okay taking a hit, and you don't feel like you want to sacrifice one of those to just tie up pieces? Jason's looking at his phone like a jackass.
I'm not being a jerk. I am checking to make sure other patrons are going to ask questions. But yeah, so that's kind of I'm not giving you the answer. I'm giving you the thought process like I do on the Metafix. If it was me, I'd lean more towards the Quintessence team, personally, because I have relied on Mystics in the past, and when I rely on it, that's when it lets me down. Whereas when I build it by accident, that's when it works for me. Whereas Quintessence is just more of a way to get more actions and worry less about things like Outwit. Does that help the thought process or the choice?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm throwing everything at you. We missed the kitchen sink. Can you go get the kitchen sink? Make sure we throw that at it.
All right, Matt.
So yesterday they told us what Clix FX are. What do you guys think about that?
Okay, so
you go first.
I'm happy, but almost disappointed. In the sense where I had actually built myself up to believe that these were gonna be like the next generation of Battlefield conditions, or that they would be some kind of dials, or in a sense, they actually told us exactly what they were going to be. They already told us that they were going to be 3D representations to be able to track elemental and character effects on the board. That's what we were given for Clix effects, and that's exactly what we got, but I think everybody else was expecting something more. Now, that's not to say I think they're cool. I'm going to buy them. I'm excited that they're coming with the characters. We saw a quick little preview of X-23. She's going to come with a slash. We saw a visual preview of Nightcrawler. He's going to come with a BAMF. We saw a brick wall. We saw flames. We saw web, which superior foes of Spider-Man, we're going to get some web constructs. We're going to get webs again.
We already have characters who web.
I know, but we're going to get...
Spider-Mans.
That's true. Now, the one thing that kind of threw me off, I guess, to say, is the Clix FX accessory, which I think is really cool. I'm going to buy it. You guys are going to see it on the channel. Anytime we have barrier or smoke cloud, you're going to see those pretty little pieces of plastic underneath characters. At least on my side, Jason's like, fuck that.
Wow,
But,
did you see what the actual content's of? Do you know how many of those we have to buy to get a smoke cloud off?
yeah, that's true. That's actually another just completely different topic, or not topic, but issue with it, is that, like, we're going to get 3 smoke clouds in these, but a smoke cloud puts down 6 smoke cloud pieces. So, what I was saying to Jason earlier is that I feel like someone was like, hey guys, I have this really awesome idea that we can do with figures. We'll make these little things, we'll make markers because everybody makes them anyways, we'll package them in, we'll have characters come with them, and they're like, yes, but how can we make more money on that? And that's why we have these accessory packs. Now, that's not to say that this is actually something that happened at head office and that this is how a WizKids conversation actually happens, but that's what I felt reading that, where it's like, but these accessories are really cool, but I prefer the ones that come with the characters, like the X-23 Flash, the Nightcrawler Bamf. I like that those are being packaged in, that you're going to have that visual representation when you have something like that, say like Proxima Midnight, who sent out her tracers. If she actually came with those Clix X-Packs, that would be really cool. I think that's really cool that they're doing those. But the separate accessory pack, at this point, until I see them in person and I actually use them, it feels like a cash grab. I don't want to say that it is, but the visual aesthetics feels like less than what we were expecting from them.
If I was to kind of jump on that point, here's the thing we've all had to do as players is come up with a way for some of these things to just occur. I've played with Zombie Super Skrull and honestly just relied on poker chips for his food tokens, poker chips on his virus tokens on other people's cards, and I felt a little cheap about it, let's be honest. This is their way of saying, look, we put a thing on your character, and this is how you're going to mark it. Now, half of me says too little, too late. The other half of me says, well, no, now they can do it more, and a lot of the things that I'm talking about are going to be gone soon. I mean, for all of our complaining and talking about the rotation of figures, August is the cutoff, and the next August set is the main set of Guardians of the Galaxy. So, I mean, at best, Guardians of the Galaxy movie is the next bubble of modern age. So that means there's the zombies from Guardians of the Galaxy. What else is adding tokens? Proxima Midnight.
Firestar. Now that's actually one thing. Firestar from the Superman, or sorry, Spider-Man and Amazing Friends team base. She has burn tokens. Now you can actually put a piece of fire under these people, and remember they have burn tokens, because I am the worst for being guilty of having a token on my character's card and not doing the effect, because I don't know that character has an effect on her.
This is a challenge of the game that exists, is communicating to the other player there is an effect going on, and communicating to the player who's using the effect that an effect is going on. And I can tell you story after story after story of practice games where it's like, oh crap, I had a power that we didn't use, or I had a resource that we didn't use. This is bad data. And then we have to throw it all out. And this helps that situation, and I can't stress how important that is knowing this information and having this information handy is so good. So I have nothing against it. As well, when the inevitable price increase on packs and the Uncanny X-Men shows up, I'm not going to complain because these things exist. Things like this where a character who's going to have this kind of effect is going to have that little extra piece of plastic. That's an extra little bit that they're putting in that they have to say, hey, look, we're increasing the price, but we're putting more into the pack. I'm cool with that as well. Honestly, I was shocked the price didn't go up when ID cards were randomly inserted, let's be brutally honest.
Yeah.
So, I like what they're doing. That is not a bad thing. I just feel like I overhyped myself for what it could be when I first heard about the Uncanny X-Men solicit, and then now my expectation is tempered and made realistic, and I still don't have an issue with it. And ultimately, I like when they say Clix effects base. The more I look at it and go, well, yeah, this is an effect on a click to go on the base, because the base just sits on top of these things from the look of it. So there's nothing misleading about the name. For some reason, I was thinking of an event dial-like thing that was going to show some kind of power on things, and I was probably disillusioning myself to some great degree.
It's like I said earlier, they told us exactly exactly what these things were going to be, but none of us wanted to take that at face value. None of us were actually thinking that, hey, yeah, that's what that's going to be.
Yeah.
And now that we've seen it visually represented, I know a lot of players have been disappointed by it, but when you come to think about it, the more and more we think about it, the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, this is really cool. I'm excited to see what figures are going to get these tokens. The only thing that's just kind of I'm tentative about, I'm unsure of, is the actual accessory pack. But I'm sure once I go into my comic shop and I see it sitting on the shelf, I'm going to be like, yeah, I need that. Can I have that? Can I have 10 of them?
We're buying 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Don't lie.
Well,
We already know. We're going to buy it.
We have 3 or 4 on pre-order. Don't kid yourself.
Well, if you buy 2, you'll have enough for the barrier and smoke cloud. And if you just buy 1, and then you buy, enough of the new packs that are going to come with them, eventually you'll accumulate enough to do what you need. And then you'll have too many and you'll be giving them away.
No such thing as too many. You know what? One of the things I gotta stress about this game is, at this point, there's no such thing as too much information at face value. And by that I mean, I'm not talking about a card with a million words on it. I'm talking about something I can put on the board to go, there's a thing going on here. What is that thing I got to know about? And that information is probably the most important information that's somewhat lacking in this game. And this just adds to the knowledge that all the players have, and the less secrets there are, the less accident. This causes less accidents, which leads to a better game overall. That's the way I see it. So there's nothing bad coming out of this. There's nothing but good coming out of this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The other thing they seem to be doing, in part of the preview that they did for the Clix FX, is that they are beveled in the fact that you have like your base and you have your figure, and the effect is actually going to go around the figure, and it's not just to add that extra effect, but also because you can stack these effects on top of each other to a point where I think you can get 4 effects around a single figure, so that you can show the different effects when you have them stacking. If you have like a smoke cloud and a flame token and a slash token, those can all be circled around the figure to be like, okay, each one of those represents a different effect that a character is doing to that character, and you're just, like I said, keeping a visual track of what is happening on the board.
Yeah.
Dead stop.
Boom!
Sounds good.
Hard stop. All right. Move on to Mike.
No, that's all the questions that I have for this week. So.
All right. And Matt?
I had written down a question, and then I was watching MetaLab, and Tom was discussing it, and I really liked what he said, which was about the Netflix hero kit. I don't think we're going to get them, but it was a good little idea to have little starter packs of a couple of figures to represent Jessica Jones and Kilgrave and Daredevil and that kind of thing, because from what I hear, those shows are doing amazing and bringing lots of fans in. So.
Yeah. Tom's idea was the idealist idea. Me and Tom came to that conclusion. His was the idealist idea, and mine was what would realistically happen. And I liked Tom's idea, and I don't want to dissuade anybody from thinking that what Tom was saying was a good idea. Realistically, we're more likely to see what I said, because of the way that what I had said. Let's go back to that, just for those of you who are watching who may not have watched the MetaLab.
How does that work? I don't know what he's talking about.
So, one of our fans had asked us, of course, so now I got to explain to Amber here as well. One of our fans had asked us what we think of the idea of Netflix Clix, where we got Daredevil and Jessica Jones, as we've seen on Netflix so far. And Tom's idea was actually pretty good, where the series as they are revolve around a character, a big villain, and then the grunts in the middle. So Tom's idea was it would be cool to see scenario packs where you get a figure of Daredevil, a figure of Kingpin, and grunts, and a figure of Jessica Jones, and a figure of Zebediah Kilgrave, or the Purple Man, and a bunch of tokens. Now, what I had said was, if we're expecting any kind of Netflix clicks as far as this series is concerned, we're probably not going to see anything until Defenders. And then Defenders will be a starter with all of our Defenders in it, and then we'll get a main set with all of our Defenders and all of their bad guys, and a bunch of the side characters that do make sense to make figures of, as well as a couple generics. That was kind of the conversation that ended up happening. So, ultimately, I love Tom's idea, but I don't think the scenario packs are as successful as we'd like them to be, and they would be cool as extra starters, because one thing me and Tom do agree on, we need more starters. We don't have enough starter sets to get new players in this game, which means we don't have enough tools to get new players in this game. I constantly cite Dice Masters as a starting point for that, because Dice Masters, every new expansion that comes out, there's also a new starter that's released with specific cards, with all the tools that you need to start the game, along with a new rule book, which will definitely have the new mechanics from this new set. So, as an example, I think D&D introduced Overcrush, and we didn't know what the Overcrush rules were. Well, the D&D book introduced Overcrush to the players, as well as gave you all the other rules that existed in the game prior to it. And that's a thing that me and him both agree on. And he suggested that these scenario packs come with these new rule sets. And I don't disagree with him. I agree that would be a fantastic idea. I don't think it will ever happen. And I played devil's advocate, or rather by devil's advocate, I mean reality's lawyer, and said, no, that's just not feasibly going to occur. What's going to occur is this. And what I had said was, it's more like, if we are going to see Clix of the Defender, of all these characters who are coming on these Netflix series, it will be when that Defender series or mini-series comes out, and they've all culminated, and we've seen all of the villains, and then they'll cherry-pick the villains, take the villains from the Defender series as well, possibly make them chases. I have a feeling it's going to be Shadowlands-based, but I might be wrong, so don't quote me on that, because that's speculation at best. And then we'll see our Luke Cage, our Iron Fist, our Jessica Jones, our Daredevil. We'll see some crappy figures of Foggy Nelson and what's her name from Daredevil? As well as
Karen Page.
Crappy Jaren Hogarth. Karen Page. As well as a crappy Jaren Hogarth, who's like Outwit or something like that.
And Patsy Walker that kicks ass.
Yeah. And I just want to note that Jaren Hogarth has no reason to be that hot. How did everybody miss that they changed that from a male, ugly, fat boy to Carrie Ann Moss?
Nobody cared for him.
Paunchy middle-aged
I'm the only one who noticed.
I noticed.
Okay. I didn't, but here's the thing. All of us who noticed also didn't care, right?
Well,
No.
And Moss.
No, but I told my wife like 5 times, that's a paunchy fat guy in the comic.
Yeah. But here's the thing. If they're introduced the paunchy fat guy, he'd have the same problems with his marriage. He'd have the same lame side story anyway. It's like, I have nothing to complain about because I'm getting the exact same Jaren Hogarth story, but I also get to look at Carrie Ann Moss. And she's a fantastic actress as well. So, she was carrying a very rough side story that probably could have been better, but it was very cliched, so it's not her fault. And ultimately, I can't wait to see her kind of chewing the screen some more in Iron Fist as she tries to tell Danny Rand how to use his money. What's money?
Alright, now, because I wasn't part of this conversation, I'll lead in with my 2 cents. And the reason why we are probably likely to not see a Netflix HeroClix set will if anything, it would be like the Days of Future Past, where we will get a Defenders standalone set based on the comics and not the series. And I based that on, Jason's giving me a weird look, but do you know why Batgirl wasn't in Batman 66 set?
Yeah, why wasn't Batgirl in the Batman 66 set?
Because they did not have the license to use Yvonne Craig's likeness.
Okay, but here's my counterpoint to that. These Netflix series are indeed made by Disney. ABC is working on these. This is all Disney licensed. This is all the proper this is all Marvel proper.
Yeah.
So, that's my counterpoint to that. Yeah, I had a feeling. So, thanks, Mike. Yeah, the whole thing is this is actually a Marvel property. This is not.
Yes,
not
but
the issue of, like,
I have a counterpoint.
Oh my God! Here we go.
When did we get Fitzsimmons, May, and Ward and Skye?
Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. set.
Yes, and why did we get them?
Because they're in the comic book.
Exactly.
But
because the figures were not based off the actors, the figures were based off the comic book portrayal of the actors, and they didn't have to get licensed for their likeness.
But Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage were never in the Defenders, so we're not going to get a Defenders set based on them.
Okay, fine, we'll get a Heroes of Hire.
We'll get a Heroes for Hire
Regardless,
set.
we're not going to get Kristen Ritter and Michael Coulter and David Tennant as HeroClix figures. We will get Kilgrave and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage.
I disagree.
Yeah, but how can you prove that something this tiny, a little tiny toy, looks like Falcon or the other guy? Yeah, like the movies set from Captain America, Winter Soldier, stuff like that. Those were all based off stuff.
Originally, I thought you'd be correct and say, how can you prove that? I used to work for Games Workshop. So allow me this little insider piece of information.
This story's really good.
We had a movie set working for the Games Workshop, and that was the Lord of the Rings game set. And as a result, because we were based this game was based on the Lord of the Rings movies, we had to get actor approvals on all of the miniatures for all these figures. And part of that problem came in the form of Miss Liv Tyler. She sent her figure, I'm not even kidding, this is based on a rumor that I had heard while I worked at Games Workshop. She sent her figure back 5 times. And this is an unpainted figure. She sent it back 5 times saying, no, okay. So, unfortunately, yes, when it does include, if it is based on the direct property, the actors do own their likeness rights for these, and if it's based on the TV properties, Amber does have a point where we'll probably see a comic-based version of all these, and it might not even be called Defenders, it might even be called the Heroes for Hire, yes, or they're going to make a Heroes for or a Defenders comic book based on this TV series in order to validate it to some form or degree, because that's what they're doing with Inhumans as they kind of fix and change things and validate things with the Inhumans. So, yes, Amber does have a point. We'll probably see a comic-based one, though I wouldn't put it past them to get Kristen Ritter's likeness on there once the Defender series is out, because the Defender series will have more properties to work off of. And then it's probably pretty simple. I'm pretty sure Michael Coulter, Kristen Ritter, Charlie Cox, and whoever they find for Iron Fist, just tell me who it is! We'll be more than happy to see toys of them. Even though they're an R-rated properties.
And this also goes down to, okay, so the Comic-Con season this past summer, people actually took HeroClix to Elizabeth Hedstridge and Chloe Bennett, and basically the people that played Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., all of those actors. It was like, hey, look, there's little HeroClix, and they're like, what is this? I don't know what this is. But because they had to take the back door through, because they're like, oh, well, they're comics now, we don't need their likeness, the actors didn't even know that these HeroClix were made. Well, they didn't even know that they had figures of themselves.
Here's the other thing to mention, too. Getting into this wackiness that you seem to be interested in, that Daredevil that is Charlie Cox is based on a Frank Miller comic book. So not only did they do what they usually do with Frank Miller and make it better on video format, they don't need Charlie Cox's permission to make a black costume Daredevil. Next, any female Jessica Jones version in a comic book, you can't even compare to Kristen Ritter, right? Luke Cage. Mike, you put him in a tiara. You can get past Michael.
Sound racist.
Yeah. how do we avoid this without making complete use of the white privilege that we have? Iron Fist, he wears a mask.
Yeah.
So already they're past all of that.
Well, we got those guys this summer, but we need a Purple Man for sure. I don't think he's been Clixed in a long time.
I don't
No.
think Clix at all.
No, I think we did have a Purple Man way back at Purple. What's that? Yeah, but he's okay. You know what? You're gonna make me do this thing. Where'd my phone?
It's okay. He's in the original type. I looked it up. He's like pre-carded, I think.
Oh God, he's pre-carded. So that means all he has is normal mind control, right?
That's so bad.
Yeah.
That's not even right. That's so wrong. Normal mind control.
Normal mind control on a guy called Purple Man. Well, yeah, Purple Man, if you ask me, is probably one of the biggest challenges to make at Clix because, for one, his power isn't as cool as it seems like. To be 100% on the ball.
Oh
on
my
it.
God, he was in Sinister.
He was a unique and Sinister. I remember this character now. Yeah, he was
I do remember this.
He's one of those prime examples of a character that's great and sealed. But anyway, beyond that is
he had triple target mind control.
there's a couple characters I can look at like Purple Man and say, oh my God.
He had an arch enemy base.
Yeah, to Luke Cage in that set. There's a Luke Cage in the Sinister set, wasn't there? Was it Luke Cage or Jessica Jones? One of the two. Maybe there's a Jewel in that set. Anyway, yeah, Purple Man is one of those figures that's really hard to Clix because his powers, as far as numbers are concerned, are not necessarily fantastic. He's going to have high-range mind control at best that does something really cool or lets you mind control and make the character slightly better or more ruthless or they'll take damage after it. But beyond that, you can't give him a thick dial because he's not the toughest guy in the world.
Yeah, it was Jessica Jones.
It was Jessica Jones, yeah. And you can't make him super potent, and that's just going to disappoint people. And I mean, even a Luke Cage and an Iron Fist aren't going to 100% make people happy, though. The white suit Iron Fist from Fear itself was one of the hardest figures for me to let go into the Golden Age. Anyway, getting back on what me and Tom were talking about, ideally, we're more likely to see a Defender set than Tom's beautiful idea for extra starter ideas. And while I would love to see Tom's idea realistically, I don't think we'll see it. And again, that's when we spitball things. Tom is the great dreamer, and unfortunately, I've been beaten down for 13, 14 years to the point where it's like, that I would love, but no. You know?
Then I come in with all the rules and shit.
Yeah, you rules. She's our fact checker on the Metal Lab. Every so often somebody will get something wrong, and I'd be like,
Which I've been working almost every Monday since, so I don't know if they've been getting stuff wrong. I apologize if they've been getting stuff wrong.
I've been fact checking. It's okay. We've been doing it.
I just thought, these are such a great property that seem to be getting a lot of positive attention. So wouldn't it be nice to, jump in on that?
And left field devil's advocate on this one, HeroClix is a 14-plus game, and these Netflix series are not 14-plus properties.
Though, they did do Kick-Ass. So, I mean,
But that's not modern age. That doesn't count.
I know, but they did have to change the name of certain characters to allow them in a game that's 14 plus, but it was still an R-rated movie that was allowed in a game, so it's a hope.
Who knows? Who knows the reasonings or the licensing?
Yeah.
It's all. Understand that all of this is conjecture and off the wallness.
The poll that's up on the Realms right now is about the DC TV shows. Would you buy their HeroClix? And it's like 65% yes. So
yeah, I would happily buy a Legends of Tomorrow set. I won't buy an individual Flash set. I wouldn't buy an individual Arrow set. Once that Legend of Tomorrow show comes out, I would buy all. I would happily buy what's coming up from that. Although we've had and ultimately the challenge for that would be: is it an all villains set with like 2 copies of the hero, or is it the hero and all his sidekicks with a couple of the really good villains?
You know what? They could totally bring back the AE mechanic for a set like that, where you have Oliver Queen, who AE's and AE's alter ego into Green Arrow, and you have Laurel Lance AE into Black Canary, and you have Thea AE into Speedy, and you would double the amount of figures in that set just by being like, okay, we're gonna have their like street clothes, and then we're gonna have their superhero clothes.
Can I criticize the alter ego mechanic?
Go right ahead. Okay.
All right. Explain to me how Bruce Banner turns into a one-click Hulk.
Okay, but they messed up that one.
Or how does Matt Murdock turn into a two-click Daredevil? Here's my issue with the AE mechanic. You've got the initial version, which is supposed to be a weak version. Now, Bruce Banner, it makes sense that he's a weak version, turns into a strong version. Matt Murdock doesn't, because Matt Murdock, outside of the Daredevil outfit, is still Daredevil. And a character like Captain America, outside of Captain America's outfit, is still Captain America. Spider-Man as Peter Parker is still Spider-Man, outside of the outfit, right? So I think the AE mechanic started as a good idea.
But it really only works with Batman and Robin.
It really only works with Batman and Robin. It's like, all right, now I'm Batman. Look at my belt.
My God, this conversation got so geeky. Yeah, we want full geek tonight.
Oh, that's the point of this show. Is we went full geek.
Do you know who you're talking to?
Also, you know what we haven't been doing this week is topping each other on tangents.
That's true.
Although we're still pretty close with the TV show. Stop. That's Borderlands. That's not Hero Clix.
I don't care. You said tangent.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions they want to add to the show before we wrap up?
No, it's probably a good point here, I think.
All right. Well, as always, I want to thank both Ryan and Matt and Mike. Sorry, this is what happens when you have
2 first names. Nothing I do.
I want to thank Matt and Mike for being patrons. If you do want to jump in on this conversation, all you have to do is jump to patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. As low a pledge as $1 gets you access to this show once a month, and we generally try to do it the first Friday of each month, and have a conversation with you guys.
Oh, Mike's showing the tokens again.
And as well, if you hit the $10 or higher mark, you do happen to get these action tokens, which we'll be more than willing to send you guys. For those of you who are patrons, the December one or the November ones are in hand. December ones are in the mail soon, and they will be in the mail to you guys shortly. So that is another perk of being a patron. So yes, we do send these action tokens out 1 per month, and only people who are patrons at the $10 or higher have these Married with Clicks patron action tokens. Or myself with a couple extra in my toolbox because they're so pretty.
And we would like to thank Big Bully Games for arranging these for us because they do really, really nice custom action tokens. You guys can check them out at bigbullygames.com, and you can.
Big Bully Game Accessories.
bigbullygameaccessories.com.
Let me get their card. You keep vamping.
Anyways, they do amazing customs. They have pre-made ones where you can go in and buy a set, or you can contact them directly to do any images that you would like. Earlier, if you will actually see in any of our games, Jason and I actually do use our own Married with Clicks tokens that they have made us, where it says Married with Clicks on one side, and it has a comic book character on the other side that were made specifically just for me and Jason. And nobody else has this set.
It is bigbullygaming.com.
Oh, bigbullygaming.com. And they are awesome. You can also check them out on Facebook at Big Bully Gaming.
As well, all of our other patrons who didn't happen to show up, they are still big parts of the patron program. We are very, very close, actually. What we've been doing, we've been saving whatever financial extras we do have, on top of our current milestones, to build towards the next milestone, so everybody gets a taste of what the next milestone is. And practice night, come next month, if the current rate of patronage does continue, will be a thing. And I actually have a big plan for a practice night if we do happen to have the product to get my hands on. So, the next big tournament locally is going to be sealed. So, maybe that's a hint for those of you watching. As well, though, we currently sit about $58 away from our next patron goal, which is monthly practice night episodes, which will include us practicing and us coming up with team ideas and the kind of the process of what we do. Now, one of the big challenges of that is not giving away too much information, but at the same time not sharing, right? Because that's kind of what we're doing with the show. So that's going to be a big challenge going forward on that one. And that'll be most of the Metal Lab team along with Amber, if we can get that going correctly. So with all the rambling done, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, all of our patrons who have made this possible. We appreciate all the views, all the patronage. Everybody who watches helps support the channel. Everybody who's a patron helps support it. That's a little bit extra, and we like to share. So going into that, guys, take a lot. If you got a second, check it out. Patreon.com/MyWithClix to become a patron yourself. Jump in on this once a month. All right, guys. I think I've rambled enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Everybody have a wonderful evening. And as always, just remember, practice makes your team better, and play HeroClix because it's a wonderful game.
Bye.